One of the most common ways to find coasters is at fairs, most of which are traveling. There are quite a few that almost everyone knows for some factor that they have, but they wouldn't exist without their predecessors. In today's video, I will be going back in time and looking at the evolution of traveling roller coasters in North America. The time period we are starting in is all dates pre-World War II. Unfortunately though, there are no traveling coasters that I could find in this era. That doesn't mean there were no coasters at all. We had side friction coasters such as Leap the Dips at Lakemont Park, and the very famous Coney Island Cyclone, along with many others. We just lacked true traveling fairs. 1945. World War II is over, time for traveling coasters to make a resurgence. And what better way to do that than with kiddie coasters? At least it's something. The company Myler Manufacturing created two portable roller coaster models. The world's largest portable roller coaster, a kiddie coaster, and the Wild Mouse. Both models were first made in the 50s. The kiddie coaster was nothing too special, with a drop and a few hills before a brake run, much like the kiddie coasters from E&F Myler, the company that resulted from Myler Manufacturing. Wild Mice have never been the most unique coasters, but these ones look very fun, and they're a bit different because they are traveling. These weren't the only traveling Wild Mice though, because BA Schiff also existed. They had two kinds of Wild Mice, park versions and transportable. The transportable were cheaper and, hence the name, could travel from fair to fair. These kinds of Wild Mice were by far the biggest and most relevant traveling coasters of their time, and honestly, they don't look too shabby at all. Everything said about the 50s carries into the 60s, with a few extra additions. Probably the most notable of these is the Pinfari Zyklon, more specifically the Z40, Z47, Z64, and Z78. These were started in 1965 and quickly became very popular for traveling fairs and carnivals, as well as permanent parks. There are many traveling Pinfari Zyklons in the US, with one example of these being Super Cyclone Coaster at the Florida State Fair, one of the more notable fairs in America, owned by Wade Shows. The compact design led to them becoming probably the most popular portable coaster of their time. Pinfari became quite the player in the traveling coaster market with these models. Moving forward, the most notable addition to the traveling coaster lineup in the 1970s was a coaster very similar to the Pinfari Zyklon, but made by a different manufacturer. SDC created the Galaxy model, which is visually almost the exact same thing as an average Pinfari Zyklon. Really, the only difference between the rides is the manufacturer. This model also caught on at parks and fairs, albeit not as much as Pinfari's version. There were a few different sizes of the Galaxy model. One notable SDC Galaxy is Riptide at the Virginia State Fair. North America had really started to grow a liking to these compact models, and it showed a turning point in what was wanted for traveling coasters. Rather than having coasters shoot for massive thrills, they let flat rides do that and kept coasters more simple. Sadly, this trend didn't change much in America. The 1980s brought with it three very iconic models in the traveling coaster market, along with an interesting case. Myler Manufacturing kiddie coasters hadn't caught on that well, so who would make traveling kiddie coasters? Enter Wisdom Rides and the Dragon Wagon. This is one of the most common and well-known coaster types nowadays, not just at fairs, but also parks. But that isn't all that Wisdom Rides brought to the table, because they also had the Minor Mike coaster to show. Both of these models stuck for good. They can be found at family fun centers and small amusement parks all over, along with fairs and carnivals. One of the many possible examples of a Dragon Wagon is at the Minnesota State Fair. It may not be too special of a layout, but it's a cheap coaster and easy to set up, making it very ideal for traveling fairs. The other big model that popped up in 1985 was the Pinfari ZL42, more commonly and rather infamously known as the Looping Zyklon. With a small area of only 139.8 feet, 42.6 meters, by 61 feet, 18.5 meters, it was the perfect thrilling looping coaster for fairs. These rides were really more popular as traveling coasters in Europe, appearing even at such big places as Wiener Prater, but there were still a few around America as well. Still though, for 30 years past, you would think there would be better stuff for fairs. It's gone from kiddie coasters to looping coasters with rather meh layouts, but nothing truly innovative and crazy has shown up in the fair circuit. Finally, for the 80s is the strange case that I referred to at the beginning of this segment. This case is Scream Machine at Expo 86. Not a traveling coaster, but it did travel. This is an Aero and Vekoma looping coaster, which is why it's weird that it was built for a fair, as Aero welds their coasters together, making it much harder to take it apart and rebuild it. However, it was done, and Scream Machine now resides at Six Flags St. Louis as Ninja. Along with the Wisdom Rides Dragon Wagon and Miner Mike, the Orient Express stepped into the show in the 1990s. This was another kiddie coaster model, but it added a big facade in front of the ride for some. Some were just dragon wagons. Almost the same layout, just a different model name. Wisdom Rides is clearly very creative. Again, nothing too interesting happening in the North American fair circuit. However, there is another interesting case, much like Ninja, but better. This is the Schwarzkopf looping coaster known as Thriller, or Texas Tornado, or Zonga, or you get the point. It was traveling around parks in Europe until Six Flags decided to buy it for Six Flags Astroworld in 1998. It operated at Astroworld until 2000 when it was moved to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom for the 2003 season. Unfortunately, it only operated one season there before being moved to a random park in Mexico, where it has since been sitting in storage since 2016. Although it isn't operating anymore, it does mark something very big in the traveling coaster timeline. Big, modern looping coasters. While these may not be showing up in North America very much, Europe was getting spoiled with Schwarzkopf's masterful creations. I won't go too in-depth with some of them since this video focuses on North America, but if you want more information about Europe's fairs and roller coasters, check out the second part of this video on SkullMountainFanboy's channel. We aren't done here though. The final two major traveling coaster models to become a thing in the 90s are very similar, and possibly the best coasters I'll have talked about so far aside from Zonga. This is the Zamperla Windstorm and SDC Hurricane. There's basically nothing different between the two models. They both feature sharp drops and turns, a few hills, and some straight sections. They might not be the best things ever, but they are very notable coasters for small fairs. One of the most well-known traveling versions is owned by Wade Shows and operates yearly at the Florida State Fair. This marks a point in the traveling coaster timeline for America, and that point is coasters that were actually made well. Before this, we've seen a lot of Pinfaris and kiddie coasters, all of which are known to be quite janky. The Windstorm was a model that was well thought out and engineered, a big step up from long, spread out helixes with over-the-shoulder restraints. Finally for time periods is 2000 and beyond. Let's start with what is probably the most notable addition to the traveling coaster lineup, the Zamperla Spinning Wild Mouse. This model is everywhere, at parks and fairs, which instantly proves its success. This is a compact model with sharp, Wild Mouse-like switchback turns, except that the cars begin spinning partway through the layout. The spinning aspect adds thrill to the ride and even makes it more appealing to parks and the public at the parks and carnivals. Opa, a Zamperla Spinning Wild Mouse, used to operate at Mount Olympus in Wisconsin until an accident sent it to the previously mentioned Wade Shows. This model again shows that Zamperla is doing the best for traveling coasters in America, as this is another model that was well made. The other notable model is interesting, because it is the only one of its model that exists. This is the Pinfari RC48. The one model was built for Maurice Pierce, but when they decided they didn't want it, they sent it to who but Wade Shows. It, like 5 other coasters, operates at the Florida State Fair. The only problem with the RC48 is that it was far behind its time. Pinfari struggled hard with track profiling on it, while Schwarzkopf was making glossy smooth traveling coasters with inversions in the same years. It really goes to show how different continents handle traveling coasters through the ages. America never managed to beat one inversion, while Europe hit 5. Overall, America's traveling coaster evolution is, frankly, quite dull. We didn't get too far, only going from kiddie coasters to family coasters with a few thrilling moments. It is quite unfortunate, because looking at Europe shows us what fairs could be, but we fall very short. I do have a theory to explain why this might be though, which is the common misconception that fairs in America are flat out dangerous. This thought generally comes from seeing teenagers operating rides, and leads many people to never have a desire to go anywhere near a fun fair. If the biggest fairs don't get guests, then there's no reason to go bigger, as it will only be a waste of money. As sad as that may be, it is the truth. At least we have parks. That's it for this video summarizing the evolution of possibly the most overlooked coaster type, traveling coasters. Again, if you want a similar video about Europe's far superior traveling coaster history, head over to Alex's channel and you will be able to find that. If you did enjoy, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, as it shows me that you are enjoying what I do and that makes me feel happy. Thanks for watching and I will see you guys next time.
Sitting in the back, getting heated out my seat.